This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
You're about to make a trade. Which you do you listen to? Is it get optioning those options? Or let's do a little research. Learn more at finra.org/trade-smart.
I met a young man yesterday at a college. He had come from a high school situation where he was going through a lot of stuff. And he said, when I get to college, I'm going to be a new person. And he started feeling like some emotions come up. He's like, oh, man, I'm not supposed to be getting emotional here. He has sunglasses on. I can see a tear coming out behind the glasses. And I'm like, let it flow, brother. Let it flow. You're safe here.
Welcome to How To. I'm Carvo Wallace. What the hell is going on with men and boys? This is a question that has probably crossed a lot of people's minds at least once in the past few years. And as longtime Slate listeners know, when I was a parenting advice columnist here, variations of this question would come up all the time. How do I raise a decent boy? How do I teach my son to be in touch with his feelings? How do I rescue my son from patriarchy and misogyny? How do I teach my son to respect women, to not be racist, to not be homophobic? For parents, these questions have felt intense and pressing, and even more so in the midst of news stories about school shooters, male loneliness, male violence, sexual harassment, and assault. But there is another side to it. Parents want to know how to raise boys that are aware of all the danger and toxicity in our culture around male identity, but they also want to know how to raise boys who love and respect themselves, who can have humility without humiliation, pride without supremacy. It's a lot to figure out when you're holding a little innocent baby boy in your arms and thinking about his future. And it's a challenge our listener knows all about.
My name is Jen, and I am the lucky mother of a 9-year-old boy he's the light of my life, of course.
Give me like a little bit of a picture of like, what's his personality like? What's
Sure.
he interested in? What does he like to do? What lights him up? Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he loves his friends. He's outdoorsy, likes to play sports. He certainly loves video games too. He recently told me he wanted to be a stand-up comedian. So yeah, he's pretty outgoing. He's, pretty respectful around adults. He's a great guy. He really, really is. But, he's getting to those preteen years and I always worry, what direction could he go in? Like, how can I help him to grow to be like a happy, healthy, confident person?
Does he seem like a healthy, happy, confident person now?
Generally, yes. Of course, he has his moments when I can feel the pang of, his self-doubt, or maybe he'll speak badly about himself. And, I think the worries I have are the same probably as most parents, having them be comfortable with themselves, being comfortable in their own heads, being comfortable with who they are, and not letting peer pressure or one or two interactions get them down and start doubting themselves. And then certainly there's kind of stuff that's happening society at large. You hear more and more stories on the news about things maybe that men have done that are not good.
Has there been anything that you've seen that has kind of made you go, that gives me a little bit of worry?
Oh, yeah. Just recently, I found a note that he and I had written to each other like a year or two ago. And in the note, I had apologized to him because I snapped at him. Sure. Because we had a conversation, and he said, girls do the dishes and boys fight.
Oh, well, there you go.
And I was like, I don't know what you're wrong with everybody. And I guess I had snapped quite a bit, and I wrote him a note to apologize for being so harsh because I was feeling a little sensitive about it.
Sure.
So he'll say things like that sometimes, and just even things that I'll see on like TV shows and like that, girls are boy crazy, and they're kind of making fun of girls for it. Yeah. And, just stuff like that. Just these little things that might not mean anything, but like now as an adult, I'm picking up on it.
Yeah. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's like a dual difficulty that a lot of people have raising boys now, which is that on the one hand, we know that toxic masculinity, or some of us, are willing to admit that toxic masculinity kind of exists in the culture at large and that it sort of gets in you and it's kind of like in the air. And so you're trying to raise a kid that like isn't maybe under the sway of that. But at the same time, there's another thing that can happen where sometimes boys can internalize the idea that all men are bad, men do nothing but are terrible. And so as a result, they have a hard time finding an identity and how to be themselves. And it feels like a little bit of a fine needle to thread. Does that resonate with you as a parent?
It certainly does. As society changes, the challenges that women have faced are pretty darn clear. The answers aren't easy, but you can really see it. Like,
Sure.
Oh, women weren't allowed to vote. That's pretty blunt. But with men, it's more subtle. Like there's all these expectations, either for the good or for the bad, and it's just not as well defined. And so I think so many men have to kind of deal with that balance. And, again, as he's growing up, how do we help him find himself and who he wants to be and be comfortable with that?
So on today's show, how do you raise a boy to be what Jen described in her email to us? A person who knows himself, is proud of who he is, and is accepting and open to who others are. And fortunately for Jen, we've reached out to someone who has dedicated his career to helping all kids, but especially boys, prepare for adulthood. And we're going to meet him right after the break. Stay with us. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names to brands just getting started. And it gives you hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand's style. You can tackle important tasks like inventory, payment analytics, all in one place. And you can spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools. And of course, that iconic purple Shop Pay button is used by millions of businesses around the world. If you want to see fewer carts being abandoned, then it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/howto. Go to shopify.com/howto. Shopify.com/howto.
There are a lot of reasons to feel overwhelmed right now. So when you need a pause and reset, Calm is a tool you can reach for to release stress and find space to breathe, even on the busiest days. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, and it's here to help you feel better. I've actually been using Calm for about a year, and I have to say, I really like the Daily Calm feature, where you can get just the right amount of instruction and inspiration, but also some space for silent meditation. The Calm app puts the tools you need right in your pocket, so stress and anxiety relief are always within reach. Calm your mind, change your life. Calm has an exclusive offer just for listeners of our show. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/howto. This is an amazing value. Go to calm.com/howto for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. calm.com/howto.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, just hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Our expert, Ashanti Branch, wears a lot of hats. He's a youth development worker, he hosts a podcast called Unmasking with Male Educators, and he's the founder of the Ever Forward Club, a youth development and mentoring program for boys and young men in the Bay Area. But this wasn't always Ashanti's plan. When he was a kid, he dreamed of something a little bit different.
I was from Oakland, California. I was raised by a single mother. My plan was to be rich because growing up poor wasn't no fun. I said, we got to find another way. And they said, you're good at math. You should be an engineer. I'm like, do engineers make a lot of money? They're like, a lot. And I'm like, sign me up. And so I went to study engineering, graduated, working on big buildings for about 4 or 5 years. And there was a calling that started happening. A buddy of mine asked me would I tutor at the program called Upward Bound. And the call got louder. And I was like, what in the world is this? And I was like, so I started tutoring in another program. It got even louder. Like, this is what you should be doing.
So Ashanti became a teacher. But despite the strength of that calling, in the beginning, things didn't exactly go smoothly.
I'm doing a horrible job. I mean, I got smart young men in my class. Smart. They're failing algebra. And I realized that it wasn't about that. There was so much going on with them internally that they couldn't even see the math. I said to them, look, I'll buy you lunch once a week. Exchange for lunch, you teach me how to be a better teacher. And that's how the Ever Forward Club started. And then when the Ever Forward Club started, I realized, there's more to what I need to do as a teacher than just teach. Like, I have to be a mentor, a friend sometimes, a warm enforcer, sometimes a heavy-handed enforcer. And I realized that my role as a teacher was very different.
One of the things Ashanti finally realized is that much of the behavior of the boys in his class came from a need they had to protect themselves from others, to always be on guard.
I realized that a lot of the young men, the way you get a lot of credit in many schools is if you push up against so when I would tell a young man, just go to class, they want to yell at me and I'm like, what's going on here? And I realized there was a lot of battles happening. I'm like, you don't have a battle with me. I'm not your enemy. I want you to get your education. So anyway, fast forward, I was working with some young men in Oakland or Fremont High School, my alma mater. And the activity I had tried with them was like my last resort. Every time we get about emotions, they start fighting. They want to fight. They would rather like make fun of somebody's shoes because they know that person's going to react. And then we have a long argument about blah, blah, blah and drama because they felt we were about to start talking about feelings. Like it was like that blatant. I said, well, look, how about we don't talk about it. Just write the words on the paper. And don't put your name on it. Just write the words on the paper.
That practice of simply putting words on paper became a cornerstone of his approach. And it eventually evolved into an exercise where kids created a paper mask. On the outside of the mask, they list 3 qualities that they let other people see. On the inside, 3 qualities that they keep hidden from others. Ashanti says this helps kids start to recognize and talk about their identity, their sense of self, their feelings, and to acknowledge that while they present some of that to the world, they keep other parts of it hidden away. And part of the reason this works is because it helps these young men become conscious of and comfortable with who they really are. And it helps them to differentiate between that and what they think society wants them to be.
And when it worked, my mind was blown and I realized maybe sometimes they don't have the words out loud. Maybe they don't have the trust in the environment to say it.
Yes, that's right. I mean, a lot of the context now is that young men and boys are facing an increased challenge from 5, 10, 15 years ago, that there's a resurgence of misogyny, of masculinity, male supremacy, all this podcast. But like, it's like, do you think, and even in Jen's question, there was some anxiety about like the kind of the world outside and when is that going to encroach and, you know, guys being radicalized online, et cetera, et cetera. Are you seeing from your perspective, there's an increased challenge faced by these young men?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of challenge, right? And what I've often seen, and what I see even today is because we live in a capitalist society, there will be always those who will say, I think I can make some money off of this. You know, most of the people who are leading the work in the manosphere or whatever, they're not doing it for free. If you're a young man right now and you feel lonely, now you have one side that says, hey, talk about how you feel. You have lots of people now that are more giving you room for that. Before, there was no room for that. Suck it up. Don't show no feelings. Be a man. Man up. And now you have this other side that says, man, they're trying to make you into a girl. Like you talk about feelings, they're trying to make you into a whatever word they fill in the blank in your community, but the words are out there. You went from the simp language, right? Don't be a simp, don't be a beta, don't be a this. You're just like, okay, well, can everybody be alphas? Is it really possible that everyone's going to walk around alphas? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that work? Tell me how that works in a room full of 20 young men. And sadly, we see the behavior over and over again of every man in the one room trying to be the alpha. And it's like, no one's listening to each other. And I'm like, oh, you all have bought into a behavior that says I have to make everybody else feel small so I feel good. And now no one's going to win, right? Because we don't get anything done. We don't make any progress. And we're all arguing and fighting because we think we want the same thing.
Buying into a behavior that says you have to make everybody else feel small so that I can feel good is exactly what our listener Jen is trying to avoid with her son. As he approaches middle school, she's desperate to keep him from falling into some of these traps, and she's concerned that he may already be showing some signs of being susceptible.
Jen, you mentioned like he's a great kid, and then when you said the word he speaks badly about himself, and that one stood out to me because if I can be more honest than I usually am, like I'm probably my worst friend. And I think growing up, when I think about being that age, I don't think I ever talked to my mom about how bad I felt about myself. And so, Jen, the fact that he's talking to you about that when he doesn't feel good about himself, he has the trust in you to say, and maybe that he's looking for some guidance on how to navigate those thoughts, or like how to push through those thoughts, or how to like drown out those thoughts, all the ways that we sometimes ask for help and not know how to ask for it, or think that it's bad to ask for help. So we may just drop a subliminal message out in the car on the way home, and you're like, what did I just hear? What did he just say? Right? And maybe that subliminal message trying to get some attention or to see how the conversation can go. Can I say something like this and not have you flip out and have you come to me with some kindness and love and patience? Because you're an adult speaking from an adult perspective. I'm a kid speaking from a kid perspective, and we are speaking two different languages sometimes.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an older parent, and I'm kind of glad that I am, because I didn't know what I was doing getting into this. And so I've just tried to like read and learn and figure out what makes sense to me, and just trying to be open to him and not overreact when he wants to say something, but listen, make sure I'm picking up on it. And so when I hear him say something, negative about himself, I did that when I was young. And so it kind of makes me think, is there a way I can maybe help him now so he's not like me and is finally 42 when he realizes he can love himself and he's great just how he is,
Yeah. Yeah. I think what was really smart about the way you framed your question, Jen, is that you've talked about wanting to raise a boy who doesn't fall into some of the traps that it seems like are set or are available for men and boys to fall into in our culture. But then you sort of went to the root of that, which is well, how do I make sure that he feels good about himself so that he's not susceptible to these kinds of other things? So I guess my question for Shanti is how much are you supposed to tell a kid you're great, I love you, you're perfect, I love you just the way you are? And how much are you supposed to sort of be setting goals for them and kind of doing stuff that may be read as criticism because you're trying to make them better? I mean, I know this is an age-old parenting question, but I'd love, Ashanti, to hear a little bit about your thoughts on this.
I think sometimes, and it depends on the age of the boy and even the child in general, but the boy, he may say, well, you have to say that because you're my mom, right? When I think about all the young men I've worked with and mentored, the hundreds of young men, all of them needed something different, right? Some, you tell them, dude, I think you're amazing. I think you can do some amazing things. And I've found that if they don't believe it in themselves, no matter what I say, almost is like I'm talking to the wind, because they think that internally they have come to a belief. So I think what's beautiful is how do we help our boys and really understand, hey, what are the things you're saying to yourself that you don't say out loud, right? It sounds like, Jen, he's talking to you a lot, but imagine if you were to say, hey, can I tell you what I'm seeing today? Can I tell you what I'm seeing? And maybe, behaviors, attitudes, and maybe just the way he's showing up in the day or the week. Can I tell you what I'm seeing? Because I don't know really the whole story, but here's what I'm seeing. And I use the mask as a metaphor because I can only tell you what I'm seeing on the outside or how I'm reading what I'm seeing. But what am I missing?
I love the question that Ashanti ended with. What am I missing? Because it does two very important things. Number one, it opens up space for the kid to talk about what's important to them rather than just responding to you. And secondly, it acknowledges the thing that pretty much all teenagers are desperate to have acknowledged, which is that just because you're a parent doesn't mean you know everything. See, when you're a teenager, you're already pretty cynical about what you think the adults in your life can truly understand about your experience. But the thing is, you want to be understood. So every once in a while, you'll test the waters to see if they can pick up on what you're hinting at. If, as a parent, you are able to respond to these moments with genuine curiosity, it can go a long way towards encouraging your teen to open up. And this is especially important if what they're sharing is something that you may not entirely want to hear.
Kids read that energy by just the small stuff when they test in the water. And if they know that they can have a bad day and you're not going to just oversimplify it with positivity, like then they know they can trust you on those hard days. They can be like, man, today this thing happened. And I think sometimes, they're hungry for just kind of validating their own feelings. I try and go to curiosity first. I try and stay in curiosity mode as long as I can. And sometimes I don't even have to go into advice mode. I can just get really, really curious about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, where that feeling came from, why did they believe that? And usually sometimes they kind of work it out themselves, right? But they think I've helped, right? And I've only helped because I've just peeled some of the layers off so they could see, oh, I wasn't mad. I was sad, but I can't show sadness at school. Or I got embarrassed, right? I got embarrassed because this person said this to me, but I don't know how to do embarrassment, so I do anger. And so how do they shift emotions?
Ashanti, thank you so much. I love what you're saying because it's like pulls things together. Because certainly my son is not the kind of person that is just gonna love it if you shower him with ridiculous amounts of praise. If I were to go in and tell him after every soccer game, like, oh, you're perfect, you're amazing, you did great, like he would get like offended and annoyed because he knows he isn't perfect. I think he'd rather hear honesty. Of course, we're going to be positive about it, but I've just really noticed that about him, and be it coming from me or from other family, like if they're just fawning over him, it makes him uncomfortable. It reminds me of a time that he had a soccer game and he missed a couple goals, but generally he had a good game and he didn't want to hear that from me. But when the parents of his friend came up and they were like, hey, Zach, you did great. Then he was like, okay, it's not just my mom, saying stuff, and it's okay that I messed up. And so it really helped him to kind of hear things from a couple different sources.
Absolutely. And I think that what you see with boys in my experience in that age, like they're hearing a lot from each other, right? And so sometimes how they see themselves is connected to how others are seeing them. And our role has often been, oh, wait, why did you say it? Why did you say that? Where'd you get that from? And then sometimes they'll say, well, that's just what people think, right? That I remember this one boy who I worked with. I asked him, I said, tell me how it works amongst the boys at this school, right? And he's like, well, let me draw it for you. And he took a piece of paper and he was like, well, there's the boys on top, right? And he started naming the characteristics of the boys on top. Oh, they get popular, the girls want to talk to them, people give them their snacks, right? And it felt heartbreaking as I think about it, because he was at the bottom. He's like, I'm down here. He's like, yeah. And I was so glad he had language for that, to recognize like not only the social structure. And I said to him, I didn't have any answers. I said, you're very talented. And maybe it may sometimes be hard to be around others who think differently. But if you compare yourself to others in different categories, you could always find yourself in different levels on different categories. And I think helping him know that that's also true, right? That, oh, I may have not done well today, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. So how do I not use this one thing to weigh my whole self down? It's just, oh, okay, today in sports, I had some mistakes, but I'm still a good person. I still have a good heart. I still work hard on my studies. But sometimes we just get hyper-focused that everything is now bad because I did this one thing, and we try and help them just widen the view. Come back out a little bit. There's more to you than soccer. There's more to you than this. There's more to you than math. There's more to you. So let's back out a little bit. Okay, look at it. And then how do we start naming how to do better about it if we want to do better about it?
Yeah. How do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I want you to tell us a little bit about how to do that. And I will just say that, just to draw something out for our listeners, a connection is being made for me that I don't think I've ever made, even in my own childhood and as a parent of two now adult children. I felt like I was on the bottom of whatever social order when I was a kid. And I would, tell my mother about this, and she would say stuff, things that was good-hearted but felt like ridiculous advice. She'd be like, well, if kids make fun of you, just laugh along with them, or just whatever goofy stuff. Or she'd say, you're so wonderful, you're so great, they're just jealous, whatever it was. And I'd be like, Mom, and it's just now dawning on me that the reason that didn't work for me is because I didn't believe her, because I believed my peers more. And that I don't think I ever made that connection that, like, as parents, we do have all this power in our kids' lives, but that the older they get and the more time they spend in the world, the more power their social group has on the way they understand things, and that our voices can be limited. So part of what we do is not just say like, oh no, everyone in your social group is wrong and I'm right. It sounds like part of what you're saying is that we help them contextualize that voice of the social group to say, well, that's one way of looking at it, but that's just one way of looking at it. There's so much more to you than what a group of like 9-year-olds think about you.
What you just said is so beautiful. There's a quote that says, influence is subtle, but it's powerful. And so, like, it's like if you were running around a track and somebody may not just like shove you over off the track, but they just start running a little bit in your lane. They start moving closer to you. They start getting in your space. They start pushing you over, and you look up and you're like, wait, how am I way off track? How'd this happen? Well, it wasn't that they shoved you off track. They didn't even touch you. They literally just let their influence of like saying certain things. Oh, why are you wearing those shoes? Oh, why are you wearing that color? Oh, why did you say that? Oh, why are you using that language? Why are you listening to that song? And it's this confirmation that happens with boys that often causes that pressure, because there's probably a lot of books out there and definitely a lot of influencers out there that'll sell you a program for $19.95, but there are like what happens on the playground where it's just a subtle, free, unsolicited advice by some other 9-year-old who's like, dude, you wore that today? Why did you wear that? And then you're thinking like, this is brand new. What do you mean?
I thought this was cool.
This is my digs, you know? And then mom, you're like, why you don't wear that thing anymore? That was
Yep.
I thought you loved that thing. And then they're like, I don't know. It doesn't fit well. Or they may tell you the truth, or they may say a story because they need to not hurt your feelings or hurt the grandparent who bought it feelings, right? And so you're just like, okay, how many things are being influenced by other people that I may not ever know or that I don't know, you know?
One of the toughest things as a parent is to watch the influence of other people shape your kid. You're standing there on the sideline going, I believe in you. I think you're amazing. I love you. But your voice is just one of many that are giving your kid feedback about who they are in this world. So how do you help them tune out those negative voices? That's what we're going to talk about after this quick break.
Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozeman St. John host the incredible new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, tonight on NBC.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
As I mentioned before, I used to be a parenting columnist here at Slate, which included doling out advice every week on Slate's parenting show, now called Care and Feeding. Well, guess what? The show is now twice a week and is hosted by a great group of parents who are raising kids ranging from toddlers to teens. They share their parenting triumphs and fails and even dispense some hard-earned wisdom. Find Slate's Care and Feeding wherever you get your podcasts. We're back with Ashanti Branch, founder of the Ever Forward Club, and Jen, who wants to help her 9-year-old son, Zach, grow into a confident, respectful, and happy young man.
Ashanti, what are the kind of things that we can encourage with our kids that will help build resilience and self-confidence, so when maybe there is that challenging person or that challenging thing in one aspect, that it doesn't just kind of tear down his self-worth in general.
If we think about like the full being, right? Like you said, when you talked about like what you envision for him in the future, that he would be happy, he would get up in the morning and be excited to go out and do the things he really wants to do. Maybe even just start like bringing back from the future those things you want. And so say, hey, what are some things you like to do? What are some things you like to do? Like, what are some things you want to do more of? I think you begin creating a list with him, even if it's on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. It's like, what are the things that you want to do more of that you don't get to do? What are some things that you want to try? What are some things that you want to explore? What is an adventure you want to go on at some point in the future, right? And it's not like I'm promising you this list of things. It's saying, let's start thinking about what are some things that could add just a different, more layers of value to your life, right? And I think that those kind of things are really beautiful for boys as they get to be creative around that, you know? Like, I want to go hiking somewhere. Now, maybe you don't want to go hiking with him, but maybe you have some men in your life somebody who loves to hike, and maybe they can plan a hiking trip with, I don't know how it all works, right? But you pull it all together and say, oh, he's heard about this topic about stocks and he wants to learn more about that. Who do I know that know? And so I think it's like, as he begins to add more layers to his life of things that he's interested in, then when one of those pieces doesn't go well, it's not like I only do soccer. So when soccer goes bad, I judge myself because that's the only thing I do outside of just living, right? Just the day-to-day living stuff. And so I think that's one thought that I have, of just like making room for just the exploration of what it means to like be fully human and also like have multiple things that you're interested in, you know?
Yeah, and this is great because some of the examples you gave are helpful because I'm always worried about adding too many things. You know, I don't want to always have like 5 different sports and all these different activities. And, you know, I've got a job that I got to do day to day. You know, I can't be running into every activity in the world. But like you mentioned some stuff that's like, it could be just like a 1 or 2 hour conversation with an adult friend or an uncle or something. Just to explore some topics of interest that he might, you know, just areas to grow and get into.
Well, also what I like about what you're saying, Shanti, is that it kind of puts him in the driver's seat of his self, if that makes sense. Because it feels like that part of what is really hard for us when we're growing up is that these other people, I have a friend who once described it as you let other people have the joystick to your game. This is an old person reference because no one has joysticks anymore, but like someone else has the controller, right? So like you're a video game, but someone else is like determining which way you walk and how you feel and if you think you're cool, if you think you don't. And what you're talking about, like by kind of figuring out what are my core interests, what kind of person do I want to be, what sort of things do I want to do, you sort of take the controller back a little bit.
One thought I have, and as he's 9, is a great time to start thinking about it. You know, have you heard of rites of passage? Have you heard of the idea of a rites of passage?
Yes.
Like there's a journey between becoming from a boy to when you would consider him to be a man,
yes,
right?
Certainly.
And,
yes. Yep.
Right. So, you know, in more Western society, we don't have like, you know, the old type, you know, rites of passage where they send people out
right.
in some adventure. When I talk to young men, I say, when do you know that you become a man? Right. And they're like, okay, I got a job or I got a license and, you know, maybe I've done some things, right? Some things they begin to like name some things that in our society that signify, I graduated high school, now I'm a man, right? Rites of passage is not always age specific. It's like maturity specific, right? You're already thinking about how to support him. It's like really asking those questions for you. Here's the kind of man that I'm looking for him to be in the world. And then asking him, what are the things you're interested in being? What are some things that are important to you? And I think that with that list, you begin to be able to say, oh, okay, these are some things that are going to help him develop. And some of those things will change, right? From 9 to 12, things may dramatically change in terms of his interests, but it's okay. It's an opportunity for him to keep adding to that list or changing that list and saying, yeah, I don't like that thing anymore. I want to do more of this, right? And I think that's part of the growth too.
For example, in our family, we had this thing going for a while where kind of in our friend group at large, there would be sort of like one trip that like the kids would take at 15 with the parent. And it would just be like a thing that just sort of said like, yeah, they know going in that like when you're 15, we do this thing, whether it's like whatever, like Mexico or Iceland or whatever it is, you go on the thing. And then it just sort of like marks that, yes, time is passing. I'm growing. My relationship with my parents is changing. I'm becoming responsible for more stuff. It's just a markation.
with the idea of rites of passage, which I think it's important and fantastic, I guess what's in my mind is there's a challenge that the young person goes through and they overcome that challenge. And then there is the acknowledgement of that. And like, now you are an adult. And then that it is that process of learning to overcome the challenge that in theory gives them the confidence to step out into the world as an adult. And like you said, we don't really have that structurally in our society anymore. And so I guess what are things we can do again to help them develop that confidence in themselves, knowing that they can step out into the world. But also I love what you just said about like the family trip, because that is one thing we all love to do in our family, and acknowledging like at a certain age, like you get to do this big trip with so-and-so, because that's just a beautiful way to do it and expose them to the wider world in general. But yeah, that rites of passage thing and how do we work in the challenge and letting them know that stuff being difficult is okay. That's all part of it.
I've been mentoring with an organization called Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, right? And so it's for boys. And what we learn is called a modern day rites of passage. So when no one's out hunting, right? It's more like teamwork, community, leadership, learning how to follow, right? You do these tasks, you work as a team to go through these obstacle courses. And so it's created to kind of mimic this idea of like, how do we give you some tools that will prepare you for this next journey of what it means to be a man in the world. And then they're like, oh, I'm supposed to be a man. How do I do that? I think sometimes the age delineations cause young men to be like, oh, when I turn 18, life is going to get easier and better and I'm going to have no worries. And you're like, well, right. I guess it depends on what you define as worries. I mean, yeah. So I think like, how do we help them recognize that, oh, okay, some young men graduate high school at 17, some graduate at 18. So do I have to wait till I'm 18 now to be really a real man? Like, but you know what I'm saying? When it's age lined out, it gets stuck. But when we say, here's what you've done, here are the things you've accomplished, and now we're going to honor you and respect you in another category, right? It's just part of that growing up.
Do you find getting them out of their normal situation and in a new situation where they're kind of about them and about team building and stuff, is that generally beneficial for most kids? Like, is that something that, if he has kind of opportunities, it's worth taking?
Yeah, I think that, it's going to be individual for him, right? So, like, for a lot of the boys who come, their parents have either required them to come, forced them to come, bribed them to come, or they wanted to come and they love the outdoors, right? So some the comfort of their bed is very attractive, and so being outdoors for 3 days is a little bit beyond their comfort level. But most of them, when they finally go through the experience, I think it's a way for them to recognize, oh, I'm not alone. I am myself. I am unique in myself. But what I go through as a young man is not alone. Like, other people here are trying to figure out how to fit in. Other people here are trying to figure out how to feel good about themselves. Other people are trying to figure out how to talk to girls or whatever the things that their current life is bringing them. And they're not, when they can recognize that there's other young men going through similar things, I think it begins to like build the camaraderie and the connection. And so we've created it, but it's been going on for years, right? If we all lived in the same little village, the boys would all come together at the certain time when they were ready to go through their experience, and they would go through it together. And they may know each other in some way, but they're going to learn each other a different way as they go through a challenge, right? So I think it's just a beautiful way of just like, as you're creating, and his friend group and the parents that you talk to, maybe you all are creating something like that for them at different phases. Maybe it's one that happens at 10 and one that happens at 12, or one, you space it, or you say, hey, what does this mean for us to help the young men grow that are helping young people just have this transition between being a kid and now growing into a young adult, and there's phases along the journey. So that's how we've done it. And for those boys who are middle school and high school, I mean, there's a lot of growth between 6th grade and 10th grade, right? And these younger boys get to see the older boys going through their own challenges too, right? It's like, oh, the bigger boys don't have it all figured out. I thought that when you become a high schooler, it makes everything better, and you realize they're messed up too. They don't know what they're doing. And I think it's an opportunity for their own development and growth. It's like, oh, okay, it's a journey. Oh, I don't just turn 15 and now I have it all figured out if I haven't worked on the stuff I want to figure out. And it's helping them come up with the questions of what they want to work on and be better at.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you do and teaching kids and boys that it's okay to acknowledge it. That seems like a big part of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having these questions. I'm so excited for this journey. I look forward to hearing more in the future.
So much of this can seem overwhelming or complicated, but if I could boil down much of what was discussed here into one main idea, it would be that there is a real value in making it possible for boys to be able to understand and communicate their feelings. All of them. The ones they are proud of and the ones that they don't fully understand. This can help them not be strangers to themselves. It can help make the world a less scary place, and it can give that all-important moment of pause and space between feeling and action. Space that can help them behave like the good, responsible, caring, and loving people that most boys truly want to be, even if society doesn't always encourage it. In today's Slate Plus bonus episode, Ashanti, Jen, and I talk more about identity and what it means to be raising a white boy who is confident in who he is, but is also respectful of others. If you aren't already a Slate Plus member, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of the How To Show page, or you can visit slate.com/HowToPlus to get access wherever you listen. The episode is available for you to listen to right now. We'll see you there. Do you have a problem that needs solving? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 and we might have you on the show. How To is produced by Rosemary Belson with Kevin Bendis and Sophie Summergrad. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Courtney Martin is my co-host, and I'm Carvel Wallace. Thanks for listening.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.